All right, welcome to the Community-Driven Innovation Breakout Session. I'm so very excited for you all to join us today. You are in for a treat. So again, just making sure you all are in the right place. This session is going to be about community-driven innovation and really using strong existing models that exist in the field to supercharge the innovation process when redesigning a new model. So I'm so excited to be serving as your moderator today. My name is Dr. Archie Moss Jr. I am a school design partner with Transcend. I'm also a former elementary school principal from at Bruce Elementary School in Memphis, Tennessee. We're actually had the opportunity of partnering with Transcend and doing some really awesome community-driven work. And so I'm so excited for you all to hear from this team today who are going to blow you away with some of the work they've been doing in the North Edgecombe community. And so I'm going to turn it over to them so that they can introduce themselves to you all.
I'll kick us off. So, hello, everyone. My name is Jamila Bullock. I am one of the two lead designers here at North Edgecombe. My role is focused on external activities as it relates to the learning experiences our students get to experience. So it's great to be here.
Awesome.
Hey y'all, my name is Donnell and I was formerly the principal of North Edgecombe High School, one of the co-founders, along with folks on this call and a few others, and one of the co-leaders of the North Phillips School of Innovation. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And now I serve as the executive director of Marine Joy Charter Network.
Awesome. Welcome.
Hey everyone, my name is Sayre and I am the other lead designer at North Edgecombe High School. So my role is kind of the twin to Jamilah's role. She does externally facing experiences and I do internally facing experiences like curriculum development and other internal learning experiences.
All right, so we just heard from our amazing speakers who I'm so excited to hear a little bit more from today. And so again, there is at the bottom of your screen, there is a chat icon that you can hover over so that you can access the chat feature. And again, we want you all to be live chatting throughout the course of this session. So again, if you all have questions as you hear from these amazing speakers, please feel free to go ahead and drop those questions in the chat. We're actually going to be responding to those questions along the way. Again, we want to make sure we get all of your questions answered. And so if you all are ready, we're going to go ahead and get ready to rock and roll. And we're going to start by really wanting to set the stage and really paint the picture for what this Edgecombe community is, what it's about. And so, Donnell, I would love to hear from you. If you would just share a little bit more about the North Edgecombe community, why you redesigned, what's the model. Go ahead and share the greatness that you all have been working on.
Yeah, so just more about like the context of our community. So Edgecombe County serves about or nearly like 5,300 young people in about 14 schools. Edgecombe County is located in northeast region of North Carolina, which is approximately an hour northeast of Raleigh. So North Edgecombe, where I served and where Sayre and Jamilah still serve, is one of those 14 schools in Edgecombe. Majority of North student population identifies as BIPOC, and all of North students are incredibly wealthy. So they're wealthy in love, support, agency, efficacy, and just wealthy in radical optimism about what the world and their lives can become. However, our students are economically like disadvantaged as defined by the state because of the set of oppressive strongholds that have prevented their families from accessing the same privileges that others are afforded in the world. So that's the broader context of the community we're working.
I love it. So why did you decide to reimagine a learning model?
Yeah, so North had been for years a school that was considered perennially low performing by the state of North Carolina for years. And that's like using some of the state's like student achievement like metrics. So we know that our students were able to deliver so much more, but needed the right set of enabling conditions for that to be possible. And we also realized that our state was only measuring our young people in one particular way. And so our first year, we added just a few inputs. So teachers like like Sayre and Jamilah, who love young people and were willing to go the distance for young people. We wanted to find like who are the folks who just like, again, wanted to support young people in big ways. So we added those folks to our staff who could definitely go the distance. We made a few like instructional shifts and we exceeded growth for the first time. We had double proficiency within that first year, and we were removed from the state's like low performing list. So we were relatively successful, right? By our state's measures. But the model was still not working for so many of our young people. And so we believe that if it does not work for each and every young person in our building, then it just does not work. And so young people, like, they wanted something different. Our students, I wouldn't say were like necessarily elated to like come to school. They weren't able to really find their passions, lean into their purpose, and elevate the things that really matter to them and engage in like true, deeper learning. In essence, school is just whack. And so we knew they needed more and we wanted more for young people. We didn't have a powerful enough design. So our industrial model, which is ubiquitous across our country, of education, just was impressive. And as we see today, continues to recycle oppressive outcomes. And so we knew that the innovation wasn't just like glittery language, wasn't just shiny language. We knew that innovating on our design and kind of reimagining a new model was best for our young people, provided the best hope at truly creating equity and truly creating equitable outcomes and creating the types of schools that young people wanted to jump inside of their sneakers every morning and run to every day. So that's the model we wanted. We weren't delivering on that quite yet. So we turned to our friends at Transcend to show us how do we get to that.
I love that. I love that. So I hear you talking a lot about the ways you incorporated young people into this work and getting them excited to come to school each and every day. How else did you build conviction within the community during this R&D process?
Yeah, so we didn't know how to get to different. So we applied and we were accepted to the Transcend Redesign cohort to help us like get to better. And so we applied in the fall of 2016. It was my first like full year as a principal at North. We joined a year-long redesign journey alongside of our Transcend cohorts, who are schools and communities from across the country who are also looking to reimagine what their model what could become. And so we just learned the science of learning, and we traveled to see bold new models in other places to gather like inspiration. And we ultimately joined to like reimagine our own learning community, and which was incredibly helpful and inspired just the work that North continues to be up to today, and as you heard from Sayre and Jamilah, they continue to lead. So to build conviction, we kind of developed a really small design team to kind of lead our redesign work locally. And so we like shared and led PD on the science of learning. We looked at future trends. We conducted like student experience audits. So we had folks like go and find a kid that the school might not be working for, or a school or a young person that like you like highly favored because you had a deep connection with. And we did some shadowing to figure out like what does their day feel like. And we did a bunch of empathy interviews. So collectively as a school with our young people to draw new insights to figure out where do we need to go and use that as kind of the wind at our backs.
I love it. So you kind of mentioned some of these wins or signs of promise. So like, could you share specifically what are maybe one or two some of your greatest or early wins that you all were able to experience from building this conviction and doing this new learning model?
Yeah, one of the biggest wins was the micro school. So as we were trying to like figure out what school could become, and we were able to look into the empathy and insights from our young people, their caregivers, from staff at our school, and we're really using that as like as design heat, design energy to figure out like where do we want to go with our school design. So instead of just like trying everything at once, we ran a micro school, a small pilot to see what worked, see what didn't, and continue to flare as we moved alongside our journey. So that felt like the biggest win. And I think in many ways could show others within our learning community that like change was possible. And I would also say that like we found our biggest win is like we found 3 dope educators who are the most ready in our school to lead that work. 2 of them are here today, Jamilah and Sayre. They'll talk about kind of their role in the micro school. But yeah, we found the folks who were the most ready, who were the most convicted. And through them, we were able to build conviction. We were able to evangelize what we're up to and share those practices across our school and beyond.
So the last question I have for you, Donnell, is what would you say was the biggest learnings, or what was the most challenging thing that you all experienced? Because this work that you all did and have been doing is phenomenal, but we know that also comes with some challenges along the way. So what learnings did you come up with from this experience?
Yeah, so many challenges, so many learnings. And again, depending on who you ask, they might surface a new set of challenges, a new set of like learnings. So I'm sure like Sayre, Jamilah would be able to kind of like join in and kind of share different perspectives. But the few learnings and challenges I see from my own perspective is that like, you know, leading change is just hard. Like change management is hard in any effort, right? Across like systems. And so mostly from like, we were used to doing hard things at North, but we made a few changes, but nothing like this, right? Because you have folks who are like had gotten so like clear about their role, responsibilities, expectations, learn how to build muscle in their daily practice and do those things well. But to tell folks like school won't be that way anymore, and trying to build folks' conviction and muscle to like get to a point where we can lead a bold new model was incredibly like difficult, right? And it required just like scope and scale. And that part was incredibly difficult internally and externally. And so externally being like our system leaders, like having to build conviction there and navigate change there. And like our parents helping them to see like school can be different. And then, so really building that conviction so that folks had the muscle to lead and helping folks see something new. Again, folks only knew like, one way the school could be. And without like doing mass inspiration visits, it was hard to point folks' attention to like what could be possible. And then the last one that I'd share is like, I know, like we didn't have the enabling system level conditions and elements, right? Like to actually like help us make this possible. So we were bulldozing through an old system to create a very new model. So it's kind of like we like bought this house, but we needed like utilities and plumbing and all the things. But we had to build all of that like while moving into the house. And so it was very difficult. And and again, one of my biggest learnings is like the elements across the system, like enable big things to actually happen, especially as it relates to bold new designs.
I love it. I love hearing all about the work that you all did to really bring your community into the work, and all the learnings that came with that. And so I'm really excited now to bring Sayre into the conversation and really hear a little bit more about the learning model that was created during this innovation process. And so, Sayre, welcome to the space again, and would love for you to just tell us a little bit more about the learning model and just give us a overview of the learning model and what it all entails.
Yeah, so as Donnell was kind of describing in his part, like we have been working on this for years. It's been like over 5 years since this sort of like innovative work began. So our model has evolved a lot over that time, and it's like changed, and we've called things by new names and all of that. But like the kind of like two consistent pieces of the model have remained, which basically I would describe as like it's impactful learning in loving environments. So I'm going to kind of like illustrate like each of these things, impactful learning and loving environments, with an example. So for impactful learning, like one example of how we make learning impactful is that we have adopted an inquiry and project-based style. And we worked over the years to develop kind of like our North Edgecombe version of like learning through projects, which, many schools do this. And it's not like we didn't invent project-based learning or anything, but we do have like our way of doing it. So like to illustrate this with an example, our English 4 course, which is like senior level English, they are like doing their entire coursework through the frame of one project. So for that course, they are reading The Alchemist. And if you're familiar, that book is a lot about developing your personal legend, which is kind of like your purpose in life. So the students are reading that, gaining that context, and then they are making a podcast in either by themselves or in a small group about their personal legend, or like something that relates to their purpose. So basically you see kind of like our must-haves for what we believe is our version of project-based learning experience. So it has to be relevant, which to us means that it has to honor student interests and our community context. So when we were designing that podcast project, we realized that podcasts are a big thing right now. And also, like, if we were to do this personal legend podcast, it would allow our students to choose a topic that they really feel strongly about, really dig into that, research that, and like use that to inspire their work and their learning. We would probably end up with, like, you know, a really diverse variety of topics. Then also another must-have is that it has to be authentic. So students, we define that as students do the work of real professionals in the field. So for this podcast project, students are writing a complete script for the podcast. They are interviewing other people to collect like sound bites. They are finding like sounds, music. They're doing all of the audio mixing themselves. And they're using like an audio editing program that real podcasters actually use. So they're learning how to use it and they're building their entire podcast. So basically, we wanted it to be that students really do the things that a podcaster would do instead of like they listen to someone else's podcast or they learn about podcasts in theory. Like, we really feel like that learning is impactful when students do it like the real way. And then last but not least, we really feel like that our inquiry and project-based experiences have to be justice-oriented in some way. Because this taps into what we believe as a school community and what our students believe, and that is really essential to making learning impactful. So that is our example for impactful learning. On the loving environment side, we have our advisory communities. So our advisory communities are small groups, and we really feel like that the purpose of them is to connect all students with a trusted, safe adult. So we had realized like over the years that we are a really relationships focused school, and that many students and teachers form a close bond, and this teacher is able to have a lot of trust with a student and, you know, like support them through their academic life and beyond. But we had worried that some students were maybe like falling through the cracks or like not forming that bond, forming that trust with an adult. And so we created our advisory communities as a way to make sure that every single young person in the building has that connection with an adult, and just make sure that it's like built into the way that we do school, and that young people have a dedicated part of the day to focus on those relationships with an adult. So for me, when my students come to my advisory, what they actually do is we talk about their goals. We talk about what they want to do after they graduate. We talk about what they want to do by the end of the year this year. We talk about what they want to do this week, you know, and we talk about stuff that's, you know, inside school, outside of school, and just use it as an opportunity to help the student really get this individualized kind of support that they need. So
I love that. I love that because I think it's so important for us as leaders in schools with our students to make sure that our students feel seen, heard, and deeply known. And I think this advisory piece that you all are speaking about speaks to that, where students are having the opportunity to make those connections with those trusted adults. So I love that. Now, I also know that you all have had opportunity to do some work with big picture learning. And so really want to hear from you, Sayre, about like, what did you all pull from this model? Why did you pull it? And how did you all leverage that inspiration into your model?
Yeah, so big picture learning, in case you're not familiar, it is a network of schools, like different formats of schools, but they're all like pretty innovative and forward thinking. I think our biggest kind of inspiration that came from the Big Picture Learning Network is the part of their vision statement that says that their purpose is to activate the power of young people and communities. That really resonates with us because it speaks to, like, I think how we define the purpose of school or even of education more broadly, that it's about kind of like identifying and feeding and nurturing the power that already exists within young people and within communities, and just kind of like growing that and strengthening it through everything that we do.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing so much about that. And thank you for sharing just how you all leverage some of that inspiration that you got. And so I'm excited to continue hearing a little bit more about some of the inspiration that you all experienced from some other models in the field. And with that, we're going to call up Jamilah so that you can begin to talk a little bit more about the inspiration from the field and how you all leverage feedback from the community. And so welcome to the space, Jamilah. And we're going to go ahead and get started with, if you would just tell us about what it's, about the inspiration of strong models that you all use in the field that helped you all create your model.
Absolutely. So in addition to big picture learning schools like Gibson Neck, like the Met in Providence, Rhode Island, some of our biggest inspirations drew from experiences that all of us in the initial pilot, so the micro school pilot, had in common. And one of those things were the Children's Defense Fund Freedom Schools program. So all of us on this call have had some connection, whether we were a servant leader intern, Donnell was a site coordinator. Both Sayre and myself served as I'm currently the reading specialist at our site in Rocky Mount. So what if for people that may not be familiar with the Freedom Schools program, the Children's Defense Fund has a section of their programming called the Freedom Schools. It's based on the Freedom Summers of the 1960s. 1964 tends to be one that's talked about more regularly. The focus of the Freedom Schools are about transformation and liberation. And so we leveraged our experiences that we had with that program. And it actually is a program that changed my life. It changed the way that I viewed school. It changed the way that I viewed like my impact in schools. And drawing on those experiences led us to wanting to create a liberating and transformational learning experience for our kids. And I think that that's something very powerful that all of us came to the table with that background knowledge and that same connection and belief that we can do something transformational in our community alongside kids, alongside their families, and truly make a difference, which goes back to Freedom School, making a difference in myself, my community, my world, my country with hope, education, and action. So our Freedom School connection and also Ron Clark. So Sayre talked about advisory and how we leverage our advisory system. And we, I went on a trip to the Ron Clark Academy and I fell in love with the way that they do their own like version of houses. One of the things that we wanted to make sure as a part of our models that kids were making not only meaningful connections with adults, but they were also doing that with their peers. And so we leveraged some of the learning that we took from the Ron Clark Academy house system and began to build our own version of that, which is how we got to advisory now. So those two are just like pieces of things that we like drew on our experiences and continue to build on as we've continued developing our model.
I love that. I love that. So how did you engage members of your community in the feedback process as you all were starting to implement your model? Like, how did you bring them into the conversation?
Absolutely. That actually is one of the things that I have felt like can be challenging. Because sometimes the question is like, how much do I communicate? Am I communicating enough? Am I communicating too little? Who do I talk to? Who are the key people? So our approach is really, I feel like just the way that we do things here at North. We're very like small family community driven school. And so a lot of that is just sitting down and having conversations like, hey, Mr. Miss, whomever, let me ask you something about this experience. Our initial year, we had a lot of like small parent meetings, just some small roundtables. We brought dinner and we said, hey, can you tell us, a little bit about how your child is experiencing this? How are you experiencing this? And so we took those insights from parents and families in particular, and we said, okay, if students are saying this and then their families are also saying this, what insights can we draw from that? And then what can we design around the feedback that we're getting? Similarly, a large part of my work right now is doing that same thing, continuing with like our families and our students, but also doing that with our community partners. So finding ways for our community partners to become and stay involved in what's going on at our school, in addition to providing like ongoing feedback. So a part of that looks like internships that we're about to start next semester. We're really excited about bringing that experience to kids. They are very excited about it. And then also other like on-campus things. So doing like mock interviews and asking for ongoing feedback from community partners. So just finding ways to make sure that folks are connected to the work that we're doing, while also being able to say like, hey, this experience was really positive. Can I continue to do X, Y, and Z? Or, hey, I experienced this. Here's a suggestion for how this might be better. And I think a big part of it is just being really open to that feedback, and also not being afraid to ask your families, to ask community members, you know, hey, we're doing this thing, we're trying this thing on. What do you think about it? Give us feedback the same way that we engage our kids.
I love that. I love that because I think it's so critical that we give them a seat at the table and giving them some good food while they do that too. So, food is a good way to get folks in and get them talking. So I love that in general.
That's
Last
right.
question for you, Jamila, is just, can you share, we talked a lot about the model and the inspiration behind it and how you all have gotten the community involved, but what's been the impact of your redesign model? How's it been impacting the young people?
100%. I think if you were to ask, so the eighth graders that were in the micro school, they are current seniors. And I know it's really crazy, but I think if you were to ask them about the changes they've seen from middle school to high school, they all answered favorably. I'm going to give some numbers that can kind of put this in perspective, and then just some anecdotes. But we give a survey each year. It's called the Panorama Survey. We leverage that data in our school to help us know like where students are finding a lot of success in areas where we can continue to improve on in our design. The number one area where our students answered favorably was actually in relationships. So 82% of our, 87% of our students answered favorably when it came to supporting relationships. When you double click on that data, 82% of our students who took this survey answered that they believe that they have at least one loving and trusted adult in the building, compared to 77% across the district. And I think that that speaks to the relationships that are developed in advisory. I think that speaks to just connections in general classes, just that emphasis on making sure that every student, every single one, has a meaningful connection and shows up in our data. The same is true for peer relationships. So when students were asked if they had at least one person across in their peer group that they could trust as like a trusted friend, 88% of our students answered favorably to that. So I think that that speaks to a lot of the work that has happened. And that's like to 89% of ECPS. So we're right there with the rest of the district when we're talking about students having meaningful connections with one another. In addition to like the learning experiences, something that I have noticed going from teacher to kind of like designer of things, I think students have always been like, hey, this is an idea that I have. I think a big change that I have seen, in particular with that set of students that I was just sharing with you all, our current seniors, they are so willing to say, hey, I have this idea about my learning experience. And they know that adults in this building are going to listen to them. They know that their feedback is going to be taken seriously. They know that not only that, they have a seat at the table to design what that looks like. Currently, like we have some seniors this year, they're really designing their senior year experience with trips and experiences that they want to have, and we give them the space to do that. And I think that any school could do that, really. Like it's about listening. It's about being willing to hear sometimes the hard thing, or the thing where it's like, I thought I was doing that right. But also letting students know like, hey, you do have a voice and it's powerful, and it is the thing that's going to continue to transform our model. Because the same students who are part of the micro school, I often remind them of how their feedback helped us grow to where we are today. When we talk about our student-centered learning design, when we talk about our advisory model, they were a critical part of designing that. So students are always giving feedback, the same as parents. And like I shared, we're working on that community piece. So really making sure that our community members know, like, here are the things that are happening in our school and ways that you can connect with us, so that we're also inviting them on the journey.
I love that. I love that. This is just like music to my ears, because I think it's so critical it's all about increasing our students' sense of belonging. And it seems like what the work that you all have been doing at North Edgecombe is just like really making sure that number one, they have a seat at the table, but they feel like they belong here. They can give input, that that the decisions and the things that are being done for them, they have a choice in what that is. And so I'm just loving what I'm hearing. So now I want to reflect back on some of the things that I really have heard the panelists talking about today. And there are three things that I'm really sitting with. The first was about the importance of really building the conviction with the community. What I really heard Donnell speaking about today was really listening to the needs of the community and not just doing this work for innovation's sake, but actually understanding the context of the community in which we're serving and doing the work with them. The second thought that I'm sitting with is, as Sayre talked about the advisory program and the model that they have created, I've also learned how their advisory program was allowing the students to have a trusted adult that they were able to work with each and every day. And it made me think about how important it is for all students to feel seen, heard, and deeply known each and every day. And so if we're able to create models that incorporate those into them, we're setting ourselves and our schools up for success. And the last thing that I'm thinking about is really around what Jamilah was really just sharing with us, which was about like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can get this inspiration from existing models, such as the Freedom Schools that Jamilah talked about. We can really learn from how they have really began to create these models to really create the change necessary for our schools. And so again, today's session was really about really thinking about this community-driven innovation and really using these existing strong models to really create this supercharge and to really create this and innovate this innovative process when we're redesigning our new models. And so I just want to take the time again to really thank our panelists, Donnell, Sayre, and Jamilah, for your time and for the work that you all have been doing in the North Edgecombe community. And also just thank you all for attending this session and attending the Out of the Box conference. I hope you all have enjoyed this conversation, and I hope it sparks something in you to take back to your schools, to take back to communities, to bring on that necessary change. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.